Well, hello everyone. That's one of my old favorite songs, Clock DVA Technogeist from the Man Amplified album. A bit more of the low-key cerebral side of industrial music from the early 1990s. And I felt that song was extremely appropriate considering the topic of the show. And just out of pure as you if you even give a shit. But the song, man, that song Technogeist. The premise is basically. First, keep in mind, Clock DVA is a very cerebral band, and the whole point of the song was a meditation on the fact that our tools predate humanity. The tools that humanity what the tools that allowed humanity to succeed during the Ice Age, the tools that really allowed this fragile creature who couldn't run very fast, um, didn't have sharp teeth, had a pretty flimsy skin, and just go down the list. About the only thing we had going for us was our minds, our hands, and our tools, and that those tools that allowed us to survive actually predate Homo sapien. Um, the hominids before us were actually using simple tools, and there's a lot of theories and a lot of evidence that it was the fact that those hominids were using tools that they survived to become what we are. And I felt that kind of fits considering the topic I'm covering right now, which is simulation theory. Uh, when I heard about it, I thought it was retarded. I still think it's retarded. And the more I hear about it, the more it's kind of getting on my nerves. Mainly because where I'm hearing it from. And what it is, okay, so for those of you who may not know, and I'm sure you have all already heard this, is we may be living in a simulation. It could be that everything around us is just happening in a highly advanced computer. Why? Really? What is the solid evidence for this? What are we basing this idea on? Well, usually it comes down to, well, here are things we don't understand, and it would be explained so easily if it were a computer simulation. What I find excessively pathetic about that statement is that we get all these people who are supposedly atheists all latching onto this because it's a creationism they feel comfortable with. It's that simple. Well, here's a creationism that I can rationalize and understand. It's not a mystery to me. I play with computers. I played with The Sims. I've seen simulations. I can understand that. Hey, that explains everything I can't explain. Simulation, it's a glitch in the matrix. I don't know. When I first heard it, I thought it was one of the stupidest fucking things I'd heard in my life. I still think it's one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever heard in my life. And the reason being is that, God, one, it shows how many of these self-professed atheists really are clamoring to find God, but because their rigid thinking is in the way, they need to latch on to something that's a much lower concept, frankly, a much lower concept. Now, you're talking to someone here who isn't a believer. I am an atheist, um, but I don't knock anyone who believes in the idea of God, not at all. And the reason I say that the simulation theory is a much lower concept is that they can't possibly conceive of a being that isn't like them. They can't. Well, if this is just somebody running a simulation, well, that's a God I can relate to. It's fallible. It does what I do, and it's using methods and processes that I use in my own work, and it is just so fucking revealing what these guys are really thinking, and that they cling to this so hard because, well, it answers everything. All the things we can't seem to explain, it's all answered now. Simulation theory. And at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at are very intelligent people who are very rigid in their thinking, who are not comfortable with an idea of a universe where they just can't say, I don't know. Now, my personal feeling is that all those things we don't understand in the universe, at this point in our species evolution, I don't think we have the mental faculties to fully perceive or even quite picture and understand those holes, those gaps in our knowledge, that our brains just have not developed the language and the ability to conceive of those ideas so far out beyond us that it's going to be a long time before we get a clear picture. But what we've got works now, so stick with it. They keep bringing up, well, this could be explained by a glitch. Well, could it be just that you're not capable of seeing the full picture? And because you can't see the full picture, it looks like a glitch to you, or that you need some sort of bullshit explanation to explain it away. That the master of the simulation, the master programmer made a mistake. Oh, I feel so much better now. Hi, thank you. I'm ripping on simulation theory and looking at paintings of hot chicks.
Okay.
You want to sit with me for a few minutes, or you got to get to work?
No, I got a little bit of time.
Come join me. I'm really annoyed with this.
Okay. So, what is the new stupidity?
Are you familiar with simulation theory?
Yeah, it's basically the Matrix.
Yeah. And
well, I've already told you my opinion on that, right?
No.
Oh, I was listening. I don't remember who it was. I was listening to talking about it, and they're like, okay, let's say it turns out that we are indeed in a simulation, that that we are in the Matrix. Does it really matter for the average person's day-to-day life?
No.
Does it make a shred of difference?
No.
So why worry about it? I mean, if you're thinking about it on a philosophical level, like Plato, okay, that's fun to think about.
And well, it's pure Plato.
Yeah, and fun to ponder. But no. I've heard people like actually like paranoid, freaking out that this isn't my beautiful house, this isn't my beautiful wife, it's all a simulation. It's like, does it matter?
Well, I got a better question. Simulation of what?
Yeah.
What is it simulating?
Yeah.
Simulation of what? What if this is the original program?
And
as they want to put it, what if this resembles nothing? What is it fucking simulating?
Yeah. What's it fucking simulating? What's the point? Is it? Yeah, I don't know. I think people are okay. I'm going to be perfectly frank. I know that there are intelligent people who worry about this shit, and I get that. But the average person who worries about it really shouldn't. You're worrying about absolutely nothing because, quite frankly, the concept is so high, most people can't grasp it.
Well, I've got a different take on it.
Mm-hmm.
If you go all the way back to the Greek logos,
mm-hmm.
or kame,
mm-hmm.
What is the universe? The idea was there was an initial event that set everything in motion. For the Japanese and kame, it was a more abstract spiritual idea, but essentially an event set everything in motion, and we're all basically part of that event set in motion. Kame it means God, but it means the gods. It means creation. It means you. And when you're in sync with kame, life goes better because you're flowing with the motion. And when you're out of sync with kame, you're in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
With the Greeks and the logos, there was a first action that set all things in motion, and the universe is made of tiny particles. Yes. What was that, 4,000 years ago? Democritus came up with that 4,000 years ago.
You're proving my point.
Well, yeah.
These are high concepts most people can't understand. I mean, just absolutely cannot understand.
What
you're intelligent, you get it, but
what are molecules but particles in motion?
mm-hmm.
What is the universe? Particles in motion. What's inside a computer? Particles in motion.
Yeah.
Really, I don't know. It is just so pathetic to see all these people clutch on to, after spending the last 20 years in new atheism, going on and on about how silly those creationists are, clutching so rapidly to simulation theory.
Well, the thing with simulation theory is that it implies that there's some, Da Vinci Code-esque secret that, you, the chosen one, can figure out.
Which is retarded.
Yeah, it strokes people's egos. Or it also gets into the paranoia area of like, well, my life isn't my own. I'm not a loser because I'm a loser. I'm a loser because this is a simulation and somebody programmed me to be that way. It's like, it's like, no. No.
So at this point, seriously, when you're at the point that you're clinging to the idea that there's a program and this is a simulation, why not cut out the bullshit rationalization middleman and just go fucking admit to yourself you're a Catholic, or you want to go find a religion that has been doing the same thing that your silly half-assed simulation theory has been doing. Go find a religion that's been doing it better for thousands of years. Just shut the fuck up.
But that's not cool.
Oh yeah, that's not edgy. I forgot.
I can't dress like a cyber goth that way.
I was thinking of like Richard Dawkins and all these new atheists that are now clinging to it.
Dawkins is clinging to it?
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Well, he flat out said he would like it to be real, but he's not sure.
Oh, that's different.
But he really wants it to be real. But there are others that are like full blown already bought into it.
Well, again, it has all the earmarks of a cult at that point.
This explains everything. A first creator. It's like, oh, so you're a creationist.
Yeah, what's the difference between 0-1 and Yahweh, at that point?
0-1 isn't an asshole.
Yeah.
0-1 doesn't act like...
No, it's an apathetic sadist.
Yeah, it's an apathetic, uncaring roll of the dice that doesn't care, rather than a sadistic asshole based on the Persian king.
I think we would all be better off if it was the computer from Paranoia. At least that thing had a plan. But I don't know. I think honestly, I think it's much ado about nothing, and it has all the earmarks of a cult.
Well, speaking of cults, look at this one.
Wait, Draco, by the way, did you know that someone on Twitter is trying to make a religion that Jesus will return to Earth as an AI to begin the singularity? I've heard that like for a while.
And you know what?
Not new.
You know what? I tell them to put down the PC controller and say Deus Ex was just a game.
Yeah. Deus Ex
was just a game, guys. It was just a game. It was based on a lot of real conspiracy theories that did kind of prove themselves to be true, but the game itself is just a game. And that's an old ass sci-fi concept.
Cults are gonna pop up anyway to begin with. If you have a concept, people will try to exploit it. It's just think critically about everything, and don't give anyone money.
It amuses me that basically the 200-year-old concept of deism that I adhere to is basically exactly that, minus the trench coat and smell of potpourri. Well, no, I'm not even talking about trench coat and edgy people. I'm talking again about the guys like Dawkins and all the new atheists that are like, teaching with multiple doctorates and.
Well, and honestly, it gets back to, are you an atheist because you really believe that there isn't anything, or are you an atheist because you're pissed at God?
Yeah.
This
I
goes
mean,
back to these people are proving that they're in the I'm pissed at God category.
or they're afraid.
Or they're afraid. But it goes back to you're not really an atheist.
Well, I'll lay it down. Why am I an atheist? Because I know the history of how our concept of God developed. I know how the stories were told and rebooted and retold and revised until we found one that really stuck. And that it's the culmination of at thousands, if not millions of years of social evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's an outgrowth of the original idea, which is when humanity, what John 1:1,
Yeah.
God was with the Word.
Mm-hmm.
God,
Yeah.
The best
in
one.
In the beginning, there was the
Word.
Word, and the Word was with God.
Right. And why? Because the moment the monkeys had words, the world stopped being chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It started having meaning. You could define things. Words were magic words. Certain words brought people together. Certain words, could lies.
And that's ingrained in us, the idea that, if you can name something, you can control it to some extent.
Right. And that in time, we kept revising these stories and they kept getting more and more developed and complicated. And they were working on the level of the subconscious, the language of symbols rather than the language of reason.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a logic to it, and there's a reason it exists. And I'll just say flat out, Christendom, not Judeo-Christianity, Christendom
Mm-hmm.
was the best winning strategy. It produced the best fucking society ever.
Mm-hmm.
And the competing religions have been trying to tear it down ever since. It was the culmination of thousands and thousands of years of social evolution, of rebooting and retelling these stories and meshing real historical events
Mm-hmm.
with mythic events. Because there's Jesus the man and Jesus the myth,
Mm-hmm.
and both are equally real and important.
Yeah.
And, for me, the idea of Jesus is mythically real, which, if you're a writer, I think that concept makes sense. If you're not, metaphorically, he's more important because he's eternal in that you can't kill the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that the idea has more powerful than any man could.
Yeah.
And then there was the man or men who was Jesus, because it may have been more than one. But it doesn't really matter. These ideas all culminated in a working formula that serves us very, very well. And the fact that these guys, oh God, Rocco's Basilisk is fucking retarded too. That is such a goofy idea. There's a computer in the future that's all aware that's going to punish you if you don't help that computer develop.
Okay.
And it can see back in time and punish you.
No.
No. Yeah. It's
just... that's my answer to that. Just no. No,
but
I don't know. I think, strangely enough, Douglas Adams was right on certain levels with, we're going to build the most intelligent computer, and, deep thought just sits there.
Yeah.
You can ask it to do things for you, but deep thought will just sit there and do nothing.
And again, for my own reason, is again my own atheism. It's just the idea that we can attribute the first cause or the universe. There's still so much we're unable to perceive, mm-hmm. that our minds have not developed yet to see.
Yeah.
And the idea that all of this creation itself came from an intelligence that we could possibly understand, mm-hmm. Or resemble us. It's just, we're talking on a scale that's so foreign that it just doesn't really, why even bother? The placeholder of God works well enough, I guess.
Well, even with Hinduism, they have it in their philosophy that their gods are actually just anthropomorphic isn't the word I'm looking for.
Avatars?
They're they are in human form and in the structure that they are to make it easier for us to understand higher concepts. And it's easier to understand these higher concepts if you have a person who, looks vaguely like you symbolizing that thing.
Well, that part's true, though, because religion has given us the vocabulary and a lexicon to discuss all these giant ideas, and so is mythology. And that's why originally it was a job, and a lot of the gods didn't like their jobs.
Well, in Greek mythology, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus drew lots to figure out who would be where. Hades got the short stick.
Yeah, well, isn't there a similar one in Egyptian mythology?
No, Egyptian. They're a little more body on how some of the gods got their positions.
But
I'm not gonna repeat some of that stuff.
Yeah, but for me, I think we evolved to this. But look how good this evolution worked out for us. And for those who have faith, look how good it worked out for them. Leave it the fuck alone. Seriously.
Well, the thing is on a psychological level, I get why the concept of the Matrix is comforting? Question mark. No. And the reason why is it's not the same, but I think it taps into the same part of the subconscious of some people, or the mentality of some people, the same way the spiritualism movement did. Because with spiritualism, the idea is that, yes, this place is temporary, but you're going to go to something greater and beyond, something that's unknowable. There are people that that have gone there and may try to be contacting you to give you hints on what's going to happen next. But, it's comforting to know that there's something beyond the sphere that we're in. The only difference is that with the Matrix, I swear it taps into the Da Vinci Code. I know something you don't know.
Yeah.
Elitism, rather than the comfort of I'm going to the great beyond.
Okay, read George's comment.
Problem with simulation theory because it is untestable, much like religion. Indeed.
In fact, I think what's sad about simulation theory is now every time these guys find a contradiction in their theory, they'll say, oh, well, that's a glitch in the simulation.
Like,
no, that's your failure, dude. Shut up.
No. At that point, if you can't empirically prove anything, or when something empirically does show up and you throw it out with that, a justification, you're not a scientist.
It's a religion for the scientists. It's basically people who saw Tron and said, yeah, that's it.
See, I would say it's religion for the scientists.
It is. It is.
It is, but
it's creationism for scientists.
It's creationism for scientists, but I don't know.
But it falls into their own trap because they'll always play the game with, well, then who invented God? Well, who invented your simulation?
Yeah.
Who invented the person who made your simulation?
Think about that.
They still need to reduce the universe to something on human level that they can feel comfortable with. Sorry, guys, just feel uncomfortable. Deal with it.
Well, if you really want to, have analogies, you could say, binary 0-1 is, very much so like a, DNA and everything that's smaller than DNA. Yes, you can make analogies, but
we're not regressing. That's always the way it's been, Sylvia William.
Yeah,
it's always been that way.
Yeah, it has been.
It's just before a lot of them had to hide.
Acid trip.
Oh, there you go. He broke the story.
Yeah, come as a form of poison. I'm 100% sure the dude was making it up. No. It's not that it's poison. Okay. I'll tell the story. There was a plant. We know for a fact this plant did exist. It's extinct now. But it was type of lettuce, for lack of a better term, but it had a sap that looked like jizz. And the Egyptians loved eating the stuff. And long story short, there was a power struggle between Horus and Set on who would take over after Set killed Osiris for the second time. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of what Set did to Horus, but
Jizzed in a salad.
No.
Oh, wait, that was the butt sex.
That was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Set made Horus humble. How about
that?
Yeah,
but just like the way the Iron Sheik does. He bent him
Yes.
over and made him humble.
And so Horus, to get revenge, jizzed on Set's salad. And then in front of the congregation of the gods, had his semen talk to him from within Set. And he's like, see, I made him humble. So it's because I was able to make him humble, and I should be able to be Lord. And that's how Horus became a pharaoh of the gods after Osiris died. So there you go.
We just have to accept there are some parts of reality that we'll never understand.
There you go.
Yeah, and clearly these guys don't like that idea.
Well, no, they don't.
And I'll go a step further. Is we work better on the symbolic and subconscious language of symbols when it comes to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we've neglected it horribly. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that, when I had my series of experiences that for all intents and purposes mirror a religious experience,
Mm-hmm.
I had multiple of them. I mean, they mirror a religious experience to a T, except in the end, they were little gray guys with big black almond-shaped eyes,
Mm-hmm.
who claimed I was related to them. I mean, let's face it, that was my mind coming to terms with all this stuff. And in the end, when I made peace with that symbol in my mind, the technology angels, as Jung called them,
Mm-hmm.
the Greys, as we call them. Yet Carl Jung said they serve the purpose of technology angels of the modern age. Once I made peace with the symbol, the problems went away, and I started my path to getting sane again. But I came out of it with a symbol of higher knowledge that wasn't scary. It just seemed scary because it was so beyond me that it was impossible to understand. And that symbol was the little gray guy.
Mm-hmm.
Did I actually encounter grays that told me I was related to them? I don't think so. I really don't. But yeah, I mean, they mirror, my experiences mirror, people who've talked to Jesus or Mary or saints and had awakenings,
Mm-hmm.
and had the same experience. What that interaction did for them, had the same thing happen, except I saw little gray dudes who had their own methods, who shockingly ran me through simulations until I came to terms with things. And at the end of each one, it wasn't real. And like I said, by the end of it, there was the dream where they said, "Oh yeah, well, you're a distant relative of us. You're a part of us." How is that not a religious experience?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, clearly this is a part of our mind we need, whether it be God or whether it be just the way we evolved. It's something we need, and we've been neglecting it hard. And it's clear that even these new atheists are craving it. Now, maybe it's because of the way I think, and because I'm a writer, and because I'm a bit disconnected from people. Seeing this as symbols and stories, and that there is a quality of the stories that might as well be magic, that they're immortal, they outlive us, they're immensely powerful. That's real enough. That's metaphorically real. Not materially real, but it's metaphorically real, and that's enough for me. That works. That makes sense. And I'm just guessing that a lot of people can't think in those terms.
No.
But
going back to what I was saying previously,
what?
that most people can't understand these concepts.
And you're going back to the idea of, you think of, there was a point in which all of humanity, all of us, or probably pre-humans, went through that phase of an infant who first discovers the words yes and no, and the amazing power of yes and no.
That's why most kids, their first word is no.
Right. And that was probably like, oh my God, I have power. I can tell people, I'm not doing that. I can express no. I don't have to growl and go grr and wave sticks. I can say no. And once you have a no, you also have a yes. Once you have day and night, life and death, once you have the comparison and the scale, you just, all that, you have that first event that suddenly the universe, you're no longer in darkness. The world, the universe was in chaos. It was chaos and in darkness, and then there was light.
My version of the Bible said
void. Well, no. Originally it was chaos, but that goes back to the Greeks, and in the Greek creation myth, in the beginning there was darkness and chaos, and then light came to the void, and so on and so on. That one incident, and if the word and the power of words and symbols was that light that brought order to things and brought reason and brought all the, how is that? That might as well be, right? And again, maybe it's because I'm a writer, but that's enough for me. I see it. It makes sense to me. Fine. Okay. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I hope you guys are right, because I'd much prefer a heaven, but fuck it. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm not, I'm not. Who the fuck cares? Clearly, Christendom created the best society ever. Good enough for me. Why do we need to go bury ourselves in these goofy, we're like the Sims? It's just, no, we're not. That's such backward thinking.
Again, it's the hubris of believing that you have secret knowledge that nobody else does.
I mean, seriously.
That's really what it taps into.
Just go backwards. It's just, that is such a step backwards.
But, knowledge cults have been around forever. People who swore that they knew the secrets of the universe, that they are tapped into something special, that they know something you don't know. And if you want to be one of the cool kids, you got to hop through their hoops in order to understand what they know. That's been around forever. The Greeks had
Happy Valentine.
Happy Valentine.
Now I'm gonna squeeze your tits.
Okay, but no, I'm talking.
Okay.
No, I'm not kidding. The Greeks had more knowledge cults than they knew what to do with. They did. They really did. And, the Romans kind of did too, but really it was the thing of the Greeks. And in a way that kind of transferred through the centuries, through, Europe, probably because of the expansion of the Romans. Going down to in England in the Victorian era, there were all those clubs and societies that people were joining, and a lot of these clubs and societies were salons where people would sit and fap off to philosophy and talk about how they knew more than the other people in their society, in their circles. And if a club got too bloated or too popular, they'd switch to another, quote, secret club, because again, how can it be a secret club if everybody's part of it? So you have to switch so you can find another group that you can pretend that you know more than everyone else does.
Question for Kat: is gray spelled with an E or an A?
Oh, for me,
Gray alien.
Oh, for you, it's E, because I go by the idea that if you're talking about the color, it's E. If you're talking about like a fog or something that's vague, it's an A.
In UFO ufology, usually gray is spelled with an E and capitalized to differentiate it from the color. So aliens with an E, and color with an A.
Mhm.
It was more than Christianity that made Western society. Yeah, but I will argue that it was the Greek interpretation of the Bible that was the key cultural event that set things in motion for the development of law as we know it, the development of our concept of the value of life, the sanctity of life, the idea that no one is above God, so therefore we're all the equal, no matter what our station is in life, that we all have equal value in the eyes of
the fact that the lowly slave or the emperor both have an equal chance of getting into heaven.
Yeah, it was humbling, but yeah, it laid down a foundation, and that foundation was not the Ten Commandments. It was the Sermon on the Mount. And it was from that and again, it was the Greeks putting in their philosophy and merging it with what became Christianity that did it, which is why I don't really consider, with the exception of maybe Coptics, and I forget the other one, is it Levantine or? But I don't consider it an Abrahamic religion once it became Greek, because it's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't. I mean, there are Abrahamic versions of Christianity that don't have all the Greek influence. But once you merge God with the Logos, the Father God, not Yahweh, but the Father God, with the Logos, and Christ gets all these Greek symbols added to him, and hence the fish and all that. That really was what put everything else in motion. It was the innovations, and I do mean innovations of the New Testament, because the Old Testament didn't have them.
No.
And those innovations were all life is sacred, okay? No one's above God, which means we all can be judged. Yeah, that didn't exist.
No.
All life being sacred and everyone can be judged no matter what your station. Those are not common universal ideas.
Well, the Egyptians did have it, but there were spells that you could purchase to be able to say before you entered the judging hall, that would hopefully get you off on whatever sins you may have committed. The Christianity doesn't have that. It's no, God knows what you've done. You'd better be sorry for it.
Eastern Europe, especially Russia, was behind civilization compared to the West, to Western Europe, and they're Christians. Yeah, but they're Coptic and Orthodox Christians, which have a hell of a lot more in common with the Abrahamic versions. They don't have a lot of the Greek stuff in them. They're more mystical. They're more brutal.
Yeah.
It's not the same Christianity. It really isn't.
No, it isn't.
It is not the Christianity that we know. It's more focused on the wrathful God and doomsday. Seriously, there's a lot of that in Eastern Orthodox. It's a much more bleak religion. And again, where Christ gave us the kind of the universal Father, the God of Russia, of Eastern Europe Orthodox, isn't so nice.
Tweldy.
Tweldy also says...
No, Tweldy says, I'm Orthodox Christian, I take offense.
I'm sorry. Correct me, please. Thoroughly correct me. If I'm fucking wrong, tell me I am wrong and correct my assumption, because if I'm wrong in my assumption, I need to know. And I am perfectly fine with apologizing and saying I was talking out of my ass. This has been my experience with Eastern Orthodox. Now, I could be fucking wrong. By the way, did you know that it was a discussion with an Orthodox priest from, was it Russia, that gave Clive Barker the idea of the Cenobites and hell in Hellraiser.
Oh, wow.
But please, absolutely, Tweldy, tell me why I'm an idiot. But no, it's been my experience that Eastern Orthodox is far more mystical, far more apocalyptic, and a lot darker. Or at least the Russian version is, from what I've known.
I am unfortunately don't know much, so I have no knowledge to say one way or the other.
Um,
Yang, hey Yang, how are you doing?
I hope you're okay.
Yeah, he recently had a loss.
Oh, fuck.
So I'm very sorry for your loss and for your family. I hope everybody's okay. Yang, also the distinction that the world and heaven are different, which leads to differing states like matter and energy, not that heaven is energy.
Yeah, you know, the thing is with faith is what you believe without any evidence. Once you have evidence, it's not faith.
No.
And I think that's why it's silly to debate faith on that regard.
Well, who created God? It's like, doesn't matter. It's faith. You know that he exists. Do you need to debate that part?
Oh, okay. Well, he's got the African version, and that's got a lot of Catholic influence too.
Okay.
But
Quality. It is mystical, but more hopeful and loving in your fellow man. But it might be due to being from Africa.
I bet it's the African version because the Eastern Europe version's pretty.
It's Russian.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking Russian.
Actually, my mom has a.
I wouldn't doubt that the African Orthodox version's a hell of a lot more optimistic.
My mom has a Russian tarot deck that's Orthodox in nature, and the symbolism in that deck is really fucking brutal.
Yeah,
it's beautiful, but it's brutal.
I mean, even the churches had to admit, the Catholic churches had to admit that the form of Catholicism practiced in Africa is not mainstream Catholicism, and exceptions have been made because they flat out said, look, it just doesn't work otherwise for that culture.
Well,
what was it? Ahimu's uncle.
Well, he was an archbishop.
Well, yeah, I saw him talk about this.
Yeah.
His uncle was actually on the BBC with, I think it was Dawkins actually, or was it Hitchens? And they talked about it.
Well, that's cool.
And I was like, fuck, that's Ahimu's uncle.
Like, oh, wow, dude.
It's like, maybe Ahimu should talk to him more.
That's actually, I've talked to Ahimu about that.
Yeah.
That's not for lack of trying.
Oh, okay. Is it just
there's family politics going on, so.
But yeah, it was very clear the way he talked about his Catholicism in Nigeria was not the Catholicism of the West. It definitely had its own African flavor to it, or Nigerian flavor. And that was just because, let's face it, different culture.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Different culture, different way of life. 12D, by the way, Saudi Arabian prince has gone to a Coptic church in Egypt for the first time ever.
Interesting. And again, I don't have a problem with Coptics or Eastern Orthodox. I'm just saying I think that Christendom, it as we know it, the Christendom that we know of, Imperial England,
yeah,
really, really was the winning formula. And the one that the Christianity that C.S. Lewis,
yeah,
and maybe Tolkien, but more C.S. Lewis espoused.
C.S. Lewis.
Tolkien was a bit too ANCAP.
Yeah.
He really was way too fucking ANCAP for that shit.
Yeah.
But even though he was a Catholic, but the Christianity of C.S. Lewis, I think, really was the winning formula for the West, and that we probably should have stuck to it. We really probably should have stuck to it. It was a very thinking man's version too, and his apologia was one of the few that doesn't get on my nerves. It's like, no, okay, this guy's got a point.
Well, there was a renaissance of thinking around the turn of the century, from 1800s to 1900s. There was a real renaissance, and to be honest, all of those powers of thinking and deduction, it turned to war for World War I, and a lot of them died.
And they
in World War I.
And they lost faith, or they're just dead.
They died.
They died. Okay.
Died. A lot of those men, I mean, it's like, okay, our nation needs to go to war, so we're gonna be good patriots, and they fucking died.
Yeah, Mr. No, you should look into Tolkien's politics. Even though he was Catholic, You got all these hippies and liberals trying to like latch onto it. It was like, no, the dude was absolutely ANCAP to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
No taxes, kill the government. Seriously.
It's like, oh shit. George says the screw tape letters, they are great. I haven't finished them yet, but I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and yeah, damn, I think everybody should read Screw Tape.
I wouldn't mind bringing Tueli on to tell us about what African Orthodox is like.
That would be great.
I'd love to hear it. I'm curious.
I'd love to learn. It would be awesome.
But
you've never read Screw Tape, have you?
No, but I should. You've talked to me a great deal about it, and I think that the morals and the concept of evil in Screw Tape is pretty dead on.
It's one of those things where my jaw dropped like more than once, listening to it, going, oh shit, these are universal. This isn't just from the time.
No, I think his description of the mediocrity of evil is so applicable to now.
Well, don't rush trying to bring your mark to our side. Do it slowly. This is how you feed him this information. This is how you get him to turn away from taking care of his mother. This is how you get him to turn from doing this or that or spending money. Tell him why buy food when you can get beer. Shit like that. And it's just it's amazing. We have a physical copy.
Oh, good.
We have a physical copy, and we've got audio.
I should probably just listen to it then.
And the audio version is great. The guy who reads it is just perfect. Actually,
I still need to bring Marv on to talk about the cult.
Oh yeah, we need to talk to Marv. Humble. Egyptian myths have the weirdest sibling spats. They do. Of course, they kind of have incest too. So
I think the other thing that, again, people really don't understand about mythologies and older religions is, unlike now, the idea of doctrine was just non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was canon.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how much it contradicted. It was all canon.
Well, the point was the story.
Right.
It was the message. So yes, you have Isis is sometimes Hathor, is sometimes Bast, which is weird. The names change, but the idea of the story remains the same. So it really doesn't matter for some of them who the players are, because the point is still there.
You know what I think it is for me? I think it is most people do need a higher power to say, well, why? Because God said so.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's okay for me to look at it and say, because it worked.
Well,
because this philosophy, this set of morals and ethics worked so damn well. That's why. That's enough. Mm-hmm. That is enough for me. It worked.
Yeah.
It's true. I think we evolved it, that it wasn't given to us. But either fucking way, why abandon it? Oh, because you can't say that a man in the sky is real? Oh, well, so what? It works. Okay, Dawkins, I kind of agree. I don't really see things that way, but fucking it works. Well, then you start getting into people like feminists and pedos that just don't want to have to be moral.
Yeah.
They want an excuse to become amoral hedonists.
Yeah. Well, they want an excuse to be naughty, and I don't know. I honestly, from my own experiences, have come to accept that humans need, and I do mean this on a psychological level, need to believe that there is something else beyond us.
Mm-hmm.
But that thing doesn't necessarily need to be conscious or a living entity, but we do need to believe that there is something beyond us. The problem is that we have, and again, I think it's psychological, we've tied that into, that dictates how we act towards each other, how we
Mm-hmm.
act in our daily lives. That is tied into our moral code. And
And I know that there are people that are the way that their brains developed, they need an all-powerful father figure in their head to punish them
Yeah.
at the end.
And that comes back to being a child and having mom and dad to tell you no and then spanking you if you do bad. But then you get people who that gets flipped around, and I know he's not real, but it's the best example I can come up with right now. Alex from A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
He takes that concept of there's something beyond, and your moral, how you act morally dictates what that thing will, how that thing will judge you. And he flips it around to being,
just absolute evil.
Yeah, completely evil. It's like, yeah, I'm siding with the centurion who stabs Christ. I'm siding with, these people.
But you remember how he phrased it? I wanted to help out with the crucifixion and help God do his.
Yeah, and help, because
I want to be the centurion that stabs. It was like, Jesus. Oh my God, really? Seriously, dude, fuck.
And because he'd still be doing God's work.
Yeah.
That moral code, but it's still there. And it's just,
well,
there's something in us that we need to have those core things. And those who say, oh, I don't believe it, I don't need that, what they're really doing is they're rebelling against the fact that there's conduct that they are expected to do and they don't want to, or they're rebelling against daddy in the sky. And it almost always, not always, but almost always comes down to they're rebelling against daddy in the sky, and they're going to do bad because daddy says no.
Well, interestingly enough, that invisible man in the sky, Damien, is Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
He who was bound to the earth.
Yeah.
Who was an earthly being to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
He was bound to the earth, where again, the God that I was taught about, in Catholicism,
mm-hmm.
was a being, universal and cosmic being, that was inside and outside the universe. So yeah, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. It does feel to me that a lot of it just seems like adolescent rebelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I can't understand it, so therefore.
Yeah. Tweldy says, an example for lack of morals. Check out how Chinese treat everyone they meet.
That's communism.
That's communism, because if you look at Chinese culture, their mythology, there are countless stories of somebody meeting a stranger and not being nice to them, and as a result getting their ass kicked, or they meet a stranger and they're nice to them, and as a result they get some form of reward. Usually it's like, hey, I'll give you a job. But there's a lot of, in fact, in the ancient world in general, there's a lot of stories and myths about conduct of what you do if you meet a stranger. How should you treat them? So yeah, the current situation in China, that's communism.
Yeah, well, that's what you get of how many decades of soulless materialism,
mm-hmm.
and that people are all interchangeable and cogs and to be used and stepped on.
They're approaching a century of that, actually.
Yeah, that's absolute materialism.
Mm-hmm.
No higher purpose than the state and yourself.
Yeah. It's perfectly fine to steal from your employer. It's perfectly fine to do all this other stuff as long as you don't get caught.
Read the book, George. It's even better. But
yeah.
The film Clockwork Orange, the priest being concerned with the removal of free will was powerful. And that, actually Clockwork Orange is also very C.S. Lewis in its morals.
It is. It very much so is.
And that book, as I said, is one of my influences,
mm-hmm.
is Clockwork Orange.
What I thought was very powerful in the book was the character that is the author's stand-in, who has had horrible things happen to him as a result of Alex. It's that moment of, he takes a, air quotes, reformed Alex in, doesn't know it's him, but is doing this act of kindness of, here's a young man who's on the street who needs help, But then when he finds out that it is Alex, the person who did all these
Yeah.
horrible things to him and his family, he can't forgive.
Right.
And I thought that was one of the most powerful scenes in that book.
And it's interesting is the man whose wife is raped and killed by Alex
Mhm.
and the priest are both the author's inserts.
Oh, I didn't realize the priest was too.
Right.
Okay.
The priest and that man were his inserts.
I knew the man
that he was
was.
sending he was speaking through. Says that in Eastern Europe they were the same way under communism as the Chinese.
Do you have a physical copy of?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. I insisted on it.
Okay, I thought so. I just couldn't remember.
They can't see people doing bad things and know they're doing it. They're wrong and doing it anyway. Thus, every modern villain has to be sympathetic reasoning. No, yeah, that's exactly it. These people are so disconnected from the real world. They can't fathom that there are people out there that just like being evil.
They wanted to make an entire movie of how a puppy killer is nice.
Exactly.
And like, no, fuck you.
Well, yeah.
You know, I totally, it was botched, but I totally get the concept of a fae, Maleficent, a fae being pissed, and you get things from her perspective. You'd still need to do it as she's a villain, but you could do it from her perspective. You cannot make a puppy killer sympathetic. It's just like I heard rumors that they were going to make the woman from The Rescuers, sympathetic. It's like, no, she's a kidnapper. She's an abuser of children. She's a thief. She's, it's like,
you mean Hollywood?
Yeah. Like, why?
I think this is a lot of amoral, soulless Hollywood people trying to justify themselves.
I throw down the gauntlet and I say, make Gaston sympathetic.
I don't know who that is.
From Beauty and the Beast.
I never saw it.
That's okay. Gaston was the villain, but Gaston's male. Make Gaston sympathetic.
How about Stromboli?
There you go. Make Stromboli sympathetic. Make me give a shit about Stromboli. If you're gonna do that shit, do it. Do it with men too.
I'm pretty certain he did, Leiden. I'm pretty sure Heinlein saw a connection between communism, rudeness, and the decline of civilization.
Oh yeah.
But part of the problem is communism is put all of your faith, all of your dependency, all of your needs in the state. Don't think, let the state take care of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Be a child.
Yeah.
Eternally. So you got to get to work soon, don't you?
I need breakfast.
Okay. Well, hey, I'll probably rant more about this later, but at the end of the day, I just find all this ranting and talking about simulation theory is pathetic and sad. It's like,
it's, if
just
you
admit you guys don't know.
If
okay?
you find comfort that you're in the Matrix and that there's something beyond, and that gives you comfort, I'm not one to judge, but it's not something to worry about. And that's the things that gets me. It's like people want to worry about it. It's like, I'm being controlled. It's like, you voted for Biden.
Yeah. I have not read Light by M. John Harrison. I had know nothing about it. No.
Sounds familiar, but I don't think I read it.
But yeah, what it just comes down to is that it's clear that all of these new atheists and, I guess, sciencey people now clinging to simulation theory is showing they're reaching the limits of their knowledge. They are afraid and terrified that there are things that cannot be explained at human level right now. As humans right now, we can't understand them. Yeah.
And I get that, that there's a lot out there we don't know, and that can be scary, but
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
there are things on this planet that are going on right this very second that demand more worry.
You get Joe Rogan started on. It's like, oh God, shut up. You get Tim Pool started, and I just want to reach to the screen and strangle the fucker. It's like, you're not deep. It's really annoying. Shut up. We're not a GTA game.
Yes, Tim. The giant chicken in the sky is judging you.
You say shit like that, and I just keep going back to the chicken lover episode of South Park. I cannot. Every time, I just keep going back to the idea of Tim as the chicken lover in South Park.
Only by fucking
Chickens. All right. Well, we kept 16 people interested, so I guess some of this was good. Well, anyway, you guys have a good day. We're gonna go eat breakfast.